Hey folks, I'm back. I'm playing Conflict of Nations again. It's been a while, but I'm back to share some knowledge with you. Really, it's for myself. This video is going to be in-depth, not in terms of information, but really my game knowledge. I'm trying to share my game knowledge with myself. If I ever quit the game again, cross my fingers, but if I quit, come back, I'll know exactly, I'll have the information for me to watch myself, right? That's the kind of information that I want to share with you today, actual, game experience and game knowledge. So here's a question. Do you guys remember back when we started playing Conflict of Nations, we would open up the research tab and we would look at these units, and, there are some units that we can research right away, but man, there's so many. And not only that, like, you open these, you have no idea what to research, and then you open one up and you're looking at the you're looking at the sheet for the unit, and you have no idea what to think of it. Like, you have a whole bunch of information regarding cost, mobilization time, attack rating, defense rating, all changed by different types of terrain with the modifications to attack and defense. We got a speed value, and there's a bunch of like little features here, and there's so many things to think about. As a starting player, it's very confusing, but I'd like to break it down. This is what I've come to understand as a player who's played a little bit. I actually haven't played that much, but this is what I understand about the game. I want to talk about 6 particular units, and those are what I call starting units. Starting units because they're available on day 1, and they can be researched in 30 minutes or less. Like, we look at this airborne infantry. Yeah, I could research it day 1, but it takes a day and 3 hours. So it's going to be a while before that unit comes out, and I'm just investing my resources into a later day. But there are certain units we can put to use almost right away. Now, those would be Motorized Infantry, the bread and butter of any army. National Guard, we'll talk about that. That's a controversial one. Combat Recon Vehicle. There's this very specific reason why you would want this at the start of the game. Mobile Anti-Air Vehicle, Air Superiority Fighter, and Corvette. So those are 6. There's actually a 7th. We're not going to talk about that. Infantry Officer can be researched day 1 in 30 minutes, but one of the caveats, you have to research Motorized Infantry for you to take advantage of that. And the research cost is low, but the actual cost of the unit is very, 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 very high. I've never tried this start before in a serious match. I don't know what I would do with this unit this early into the game. So if you've tried this, let me know how that is in the comments below. I'm super curious as to how that works, for you. But we're going to be talking about those 6 units that I just overviewed, and we'll go down the list. First of all, welcome to my channel. I'm going to try to do this in one take. This is a lot of information, I know. To be honest with you, this is like my 9th take, and I know I'm gonna hum, I'm gonna haw, but I know my information's good, so I hope you stick around. Okay. First, we're gonna be talking about Motorized Infantry. Motorized Infantry is it's the bread and butter, and the reason why it's the bread and butter is because the benefit of this unit is its efficiency for cost. Like, this is the best unit for turning your resources, supplies, components, all that stuff, into general combat power. Its attack rating and defense rating are fairly balanced. It has some defense against air. It can be airlifted, it can conquer territory, it can do just about anything you need a land unit to do, and it does everything like generally okay. It's a little better at defense. As you can see, it has a defense mod, but we all knew that, right? So defense rating, add 25% to like 3.75. You get around like 4.5, right? 2.5, add 25%, you get around 3. We'll just say 4.5 and 3. So it's better at defense for sure, about 50% better at defense, but it can do everything. If you wanted to attack with it, you could attack with it. So there's really hardly any downsides to this unit. I'd say the only downside at the beginning of the game is when you start the game, you already have mostly motorized infantry. So by researching motorized infantry and mobilizing them, you're kind of adding more of the same. Your army gets a little one note. You do one thing and you do it well. That's kind of the only downside. It's not really a downside because these motorized infantry are great units. In terms of, you know, making a good stack, well, we can talk about that. Oh man, okay. Well, I had view of these earlier. Let's see if I can just get a view of them. This guy who is about to attack me, actually this whole coalition, they're pretty good about making diverse stacks. That's really important if you want your units to be preserved. So one thing that I'm not doing well is I've only researched destroyers in my research for naval units. That's because I didn't really expect to do a naval battle this soon, but you know, they came across the continent and now they're on my shores. So I have at least a little bit of defense, right? I don't think it's enough because I underestimated how many ships they would have, but that's okay. But basically, the more diverse the stack, the more resilient it is. With motorized infantry and only motorized infantry, you're going to lose some units, so that's going to be the downside there. National Guard, this one is controversial. Most people don't like National Guard. They don't see the point of it. They think it's completely worthless. I'm here to say that that's not true. There's many reasons why you would want to build National Guard over motorized infantry, and it has to do with everything that is not a plus for motorized infantry. So motorized infantry, generally very good units, also very efficient in terms of cost. Those are absolutely not the case with National Guard. They are cheaper, yes, but the efficiency from turning cost into actual combat power, abysmal. Also, just generally, like, even having this unit, it's not really for combat, right? You don't want to actually be attacking much with this unit. They do damage. That cannot be understated. They actually do have combat capabilities, but it's not as efficient, it's not as powerful as motorized infantry. Even when you factor in, let's look at this, like defense mod 50% in a city. You park this in a city, defense rating 2.3, add 50% to that, you're looking at, what, 3.5. Whereas motorized infantry was 3.8 plus 25%. It has 4.5 compared to National Guard's 3.5. And, you know, let's not even talk about hard targets. It's even worse. So what is the reason why you would choose National Guard? It's really about mobilization time and preserving your economy so that you can use it somewhere else, right? So most people, I'll just tell you right now, most people do National Guard if they're doing an early air force. So if they have strike fighters available at day one, or if they want to go air superiority fighter or helicopter gunship, they might opt to do National Guards, as I've done right now. I have National Guard. I don't even have motorized infantry research because I knew I would be going helicopter gunship. So my starting units were National Guard, helicopter gunship, main battle tank, and mobile SAM launcher. That's my composition. It works well for me. So far, I have the most territory in the game. I'm not going to show you the list, but you know, I am the highest city count in the game, and that's why I'm being attacked right now. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, nice. So look at this stack. This stack is an absolute nightmare to attack because they've diversified it so much. They have good stats on just about everything because they have a diverse cast of naval units, but also simply because they have 4 different units, it's going to take 4 times as long for them to lose a unit. So by the time I've lost, you know, let's say my destroyer stack, you know, has 5 destroyers, the moment I lose, you know, 1/5 of my health because I have 5 destroyers, I'm going to lose a destroyer. Whereas this guy is going to need to lose about 4 times as much because he has 4 different types of units. So my whole stack is just about going to be gone when he's going to have all of his units remaining, almost. They're all going to be damaged. He's going to have to go lick his wounds, but he'll have most of his units left over. So that's the power of diversity. So we're switching around. Sorry, that was for motorized infantry and, you know, the lack of diversity. We're still talking about National Guard. Let's go back. National Guard. Mobilization time is 8 hours. So mobilization time is a big one. If you think about each of these units or each of these cities as kind of like pipelines, the faster they go through the pipeline, the faster you can make something else, right? So by the time you create a motorized infantry in 18 hours, National Guard will be, you know, he'll have created 2 and he's on his way to making a 3rd. By the time you create 2 motorized infantry, he'll have 5 National Guards. And the requirements are even better than motorized infantry. Motorized infantry, they only require an army base and the research. So this is like as low as it gets, but what's even lower is National Guard. It only requires a recruiting office. And you might ask, well, why do you say it's a lower requirement? Because army base only takes 1 minute and 30 seconds to build, whereas recruiting office, it takes about 30 minutes to build. So what's up with that? Why are you saying that recruiting office is less of a requirement than army base? And this is when you think about economy, this is where this really comes into play. So recruiting office is in and of itself an economic building. It gives you resources when you build it. So even if you do nothing with recruiting office, if you build one in your city, it gives you a flat 200 manpower resource, and it gives you a little extra on top of that. So 210 just by itself of manpower generation. Again, most people build it for the mobilization speed increase, but that's not the only thing it provides, right? It's an economy building. You have 5 cities, you build a recruiting office in every single one. You usually start around with like 900 per day of manpower. Those 5 recruiting offices will double your manpower. So it's huge. It's huge. If you're running out of manpower because you don't have a lot of territory, that is the play to make. It's an economic move, and just by a byproduct, you also get to build National Guard without building anything else. In terms of army base, again, you have to build army bases in order to have any sort of real land army. I get that, but in terms of economy, it does absolutely nothing. It gives you no economic benefit. You put your resources into building an army base level 1, like 250. It doesn't seem like a lot, but if you put 5 army bases, 1 in each city, you'll know that you run out of resources really fast. You cannot make use of that army base. Like, you know that intuitively, but really what's going on here is the army base is just you build it for the privilege of making units. And so if you're not using that privilege and you're just having the army base sit there, it does absolutely nothing. In fact, you're actually losing cash for having it there. Right? It's not an economic building. It's just a lease for that city to build military units. So you want to build as little of these army bases as possible, because so it's like the motorized infantry. You build, 2, maybe 3 army bases, and so that's about as many motorized infantry as you're going to get. National Guard, you can go crazy. You can build 5 recruiting offices, 1 in each city, and you build 10 National Guards before the day's over. And you could do that. Of course, again, I'm talking about a unit that's not very good at combat capabilities, but if all you want them to do is sit in your city, or eventually later in the game, like take territory very slowly while your other units are doing the real work, which I'll explain later with like Air Superiority Fighter, Strike Fighter. If you're looking to build these things and you really don't need an actual land army with your strategy, National Guard it's great. It still conquers territory. You only need 1 to conquer territory. It's way cheaper. The daily upkeep is lower. About it's lower, right? So this is it's a great unit. That's what you would want it for. It's not for combat. It's literally just if you want a unit to conquer territory, or you want a unit to sit in an area that needs to be defended. It's right there. The last thing I want to talk about is the HP differential. Like, it's kind of obvious because it's, more units means more HP, but when I was, I don't know why I'm saying that so much. I guess I'm a little nervous. Let's see. let's talk about something fun. We're talking about something I love. Let's get back into it. 15 HP for the Motorized Infantry. If you have 2 Motorized Infantry, remember that's about how long it takes for the other guy to have built 5 National Guard. 2 Motorized Infantry is 30 HP. If we have 5 National Guard, it's not going to be 75 HP. That's how much they can have, but that's not actually how much they come out with. Their unit hit points depend on the morale of the mobilizing city. So at the beginning of the game, every city has 70% morale, and so these National Guards right at the start of the game will pop out with about 10, 11 HP. So we're looking at 50 to 55 HP compared to the 30 HP of the Motorized Infantry. So if you're looking to defend, they're a bigger health buffer. They'll take longer to take out. So it'll buy you time and it'll save you resources. So now we can move on to Combat Recon Vehicle. So hey, if you're enjoying this video, let me know in the comments below. Those were the 2 infantry units. I got a lot more to talk about. I can talk about the economy of this game, you know, but anyway, yeah, this channel is really for me and retaining my knowledge of the things that I do. Like if there's a game that I like and there's information that I might forget in the future, that's really what this channel is all about. I kind of condense my knowledge into a video that I can watch again, and maybe you can benefit from it as well, and I hope you're benefiting from it. As we move on to Combat Recon Vehicle, I don't know why I made that tangent, but Combat Recon Vehicle is a unit that you start off with at the beginning of the game. You get 1, right? So, you know, if you already have 1, you only need 1 to scout. You only need 1 to have that sight range of 40. It has a better sight range. So why are we building Combat Recon Vehicle at the beginning of the game? Like, why are we building more than 1? Right? We research it. We use an army base. It's a high cost unit. That's fairly high cost. And the reason why we're using it is really for this attack rating right here. It's a hard target with a high attack rating against soft target. So it's really for eliminating the enemy's starting army. Because we know if we look at Motorized Infantry, and like, okay, so the 3 units that they might start out with, that every country might start out with, is Motorized Infantry. We know that does more damage to soft than hard, so it doesn't do that much damage to hard target. The other thing they might have is towed artillery. Again, same thing, less damage to hard target. The other unit is air superiority fighter. Again, less damage to hard target. So this Combat Recon Vehicle is going to take less damage from basically every starting unit that your opponent has, right? And it's going to do way more damage than any of them can do in return. 4.5 attack rating to soft targets. So you're going to be eliminating all of their Motorized Infantry, and by making that you know, combat power differential, you're going to be able to take over their armies with, you know, with relative ease. So that's really what it is. You're going to want to build Combat Recon Vehicle as soon as possible and make that early aggressive play. If you're looking to attack another player right at the start of the game, I'm talking by day 2, no later, then Combat Recon Vehicle is a great unit. It's not going to be counterable by many. Soon after that, it does fall off really hard. As soon as people are able to get armored fighting vehicle on the ground. So it's a day 2 research. Sometimes it's day 1 for some people, but it takes a day to research and about another day to mobilize. So you're looking day 3, day 4 is when they start to be able to get armored fighting vehicle and main battle tank. Again, they have to build army base level 2, so that's also an additional investment on their part. For you can just pop out Combat Recon Vehicles with army base level 1. You don't need that extra investment. Again, army bases are an investment that don't add to your combat power. They don't add to your economy. All it is a lease to actually produce units. So the people who are investing that much into armored fighting vehicle and main battle tank, they're going to have at most one, while you have a bunch of combat recon vehicles that have maybe already taken out the rest of their army. So that's what's great about it. Your first opponent is going to have a one heck of a time with combat recon vehicles as its opponent. Again, it falls off though. So after day 3, after day 4, when they're starting to, you know, build up their tank destroyers and all that stuff, it kind of falls into their normal role, what you would expect from the recon vehicle. It does scouting. Like, you can separate, let's say you made like 2 or 3 combat recon vehicles. You can separate all of those into different land stacks. So every single one of your stacks for the rest of the game until you lose them have the scout and extra sight range, which is phenomenally useful. So these transition well, but they're not scouts at the start of the game. They're pure offense. All right, mobile anti-air vehicle. So what we're doing with mobile anti-air vehicle is I have to explain the scenario here. So the mobile anti-air vehicle is good against air vehicles. It does a little bit of damage. This should not be discounted. It does a little bit of damage to both hard targets and soft targets. So we're going to make good use of that. Hit points are 25. That is really high hit points for a starting unit. Most units are like 15 HP, 17 HP, stuff like that, right? So 25 is really high. It's a centerline unit. So what this is doing is it's just based off its stats, ignore the anti-air capability. We all know that it is good against aircraft, it's good against helicopters, but what else is there? This is protecting all of your other units in the same stack. So if you have mobile anti-air with your combat recon vehicle and like 8 motorized infantry, this creates a very, very well-balanced stack for attacking your opponent's army, and there's not really much they can do without losing a lot in return. So if they try to attack this stack, a lot of the damage is going to go straight to the mobile anti-air vehicle, your army's units, your motorized infantry HP, and therefore their combat power is preserved, right? And so mobile anti-air vehicle, it preserves HP in that way just by being tanky. But also, let's just pretend that this SAM launcher, I don't have mobile anti-air vehicle on this, but let's just pretend that it's a mobile anti-air vehicle. As it's going through enemy territory, what the enemy is going to want to do if they have aircraft is they're going to want to attack that stack, but they can't all of a sudden, because if they attack it, they're going to get attacked by the mobile anti-air vehicle. And I will note that the mobile anti-air vehicle has a very, very small attack range. It has an attack range of 26, but it's not big. You know, the bubble that you're seeing here is an attack range of 100. So their attack range for mobile anti-air vehicle is only like slightly bigger than the size of a city. And so if you put it on defense, it's not actually that good at defending your country as a whole. It only defends one city. But if we're looking to attack, and this is where it really shines, we look to attack, and it defends your army in this little moving bubble that moves across the enemy's territory. That's what it excels at. So it creates a little bubble that no aircraft early in the game is going to want to take on, because if they're using a helicopter gunship or an attack helicopter, it's doing just as much damage to that helicopter as it's doing to you. And for any sort of aircraft, it's doing like at least double damage to the aircraft that are trying to attack you, right? So even with just one, it almost completely defends against early air attacks. It also has, it's just well-rounded. You get what I'm saying. It's well-rounded. It's tanky and all that. It protects your attacking army. So it's a counter defense, if that makes any sense. Let me know if I explained that one correctly, or if I explained it well enough for you to understand how to use mobile anti-air vehicle. That one's a little difficult to explain, but once you understand how to use it, that one's a very strong unit. Air Superiority Fighter. Let's move on to Air Superiority Fighter. This one is a little easier to explain. Most people are going to think of Strike Fighter as the more land attacky kind of unit. you know, does 4 damage to both soft and hard targets. But Air Superiority Fighter, you know, it does about half the damage, only 2 to soft targets, 1.5 to hard targets, but it still does the job pretty well. Like if we look at the infantry, motorized infantry, it only does 0.3. That's way less than 2.0 that the Air Superiority Fighter has, right? So if you're looking to whittle down your opponent's units, Air Superiority Fighter does it, you know, kind of well. A Strike Fighter, yeah, it does it better, but Air Superiority Fighter can do it too, and it can do it earlier on in the game. Right at day 1, 30 minutes into the game, you can start building an Air Superiority Fighter. So what we're doing with a second Air Superiority Fighter, because remember, we start with one, is we're basically saying to any opponent that we attack at that point that, hey, we have control of the air. You're going to lose your Air Superiority Fighter because we're going to attack it with ours. And then once your Air Superiority Fighter is gone and we still have 2 Air Superiority Fighters, we're just going to use these units to harass all of your units, and our land units don't even have to do anything. You're just going to have to sit there and take the damage until you research your mobile anti-air vehicle. But again, if this is a reactionary research, this is going to take a while. Even though it's 30 minutes research time, it takes all of that resources. Who knows if they already used them all? If they use them all, they're in a real pickle, because these are not cheap, right? Mobile anti-air vehicle is not cheap, and it takes 16 hours to mobilize. So even if they start researching it the moment you start attacking them, you have 16 solid hours to do whatever you want. You can do a lot of damage with aircraft in 16 hours. That's like, I don't know, imagine attacking, let's say 10 times. That's pretty conservative, but let's say you attack 10 times. You've done 20 damage to their army. So you've eliminated one and maybe damaged another. Well, actually, you have 2. You have 2 Air Superiority Fighters. So let's say you're doing, 3 or 4 damage, and you attack 10 times. You eliminated, 2 or almost 3 units in their army. And so now you have the advantage, and you can just take over with whatever land units that you want. So this is a very methodical, slow kind of play, but it's a very high efficiency play, especially if they don't build counters to it. You're just going to slowly take them over, and you might not even lose a single unit when you build Air Superiority Fighter early on in the game. The great thing about Air Superiority Fighter over Strike Fighter is Air Superiority Fighter beats Strike Fighter. Strike Fighter only does 2 damage to fixed-wing aircraft, so it's not going to do as much damage as an Air Superiority Fighter does to it. Air Superiority Fighter wins. Of course, they both lose to Mobile Anti-Air Vehicle and Mobile SAM Launcher, but again, early on, that's a very big investment for an opponent to make, so you're forcing their hand, and it's a very good play because they're diverting resources away from their actual army, and all you did was build 1, 2, 3 Air Superiority Fighters. That's all you did, and the rest of your funds can go to whatever units that you want while you harass them and force them to make bad plays with your Air Force. Very good start to the game. The bad thing about Air Superiority Fighter is, if they don't have an Air Force, a lot of the power kind of disappears. There's a lot of better options. There's a lot of more impactful options later on in the game, especially, once you get to day 30, 40, Air Superiority Fighters, they're going to kind of fall off, especially because most players will build a mobile SAM launcher, and Air Superiority Fighters basically have to stay away from any zone that the mobile SAM launchers are in. So there are downsides to it, but early on, they're a very good play. And so we move on to the last one, Corvette. This is the 6th starter unit. And a lot of people will say, this is another controversial one, a lot of people will say Corvette's useless. It's not good. It's worse than frigates, destroyers, cruisers. It'll lose to just about anything that gets thrown at it. But you got to remember, the units that you see on the research page are not the only C units. What does Corvette beat? Transport ships. anytime a land unit goes into the sea, it gets converted into a transport ship, and transport ships have absolutely no combat power. So the fact that this even has any combat power at all makes it infinitely more powerful than a transport ship. One of the cool things about naval warfare, or not cool, 'cause I've been on the receiving end of this, is if you're at war with somebody and they send a transport ship over your Corvette and they meet each other in the sea, your Corvette will destroy the entire army. They cannot escape. They're just stuck with the Corvette. The Corvette will shoot down every single last hit point of whatever they threw at you. They can throw 100 units at one Corvette and the Corvette will still win, right? So what that means is if you build a Corvette and you place it right next to, okay, there's two places you could put it. You could put it here if you're already at war with somebody and you're worried about them attacking. That'll stop them from moving through this junction, right? But if you put it right in front of the city, like I did right here, that'll protect against anybody who's trying to be sneaky. They want to get a first assault on you and disembark on your city. The moment they disembark and declare war, your ship's right there to take the transport ship on, and they'll lose every single unit. So if you find that they get caught in that trap, that's an easy land grab for you. And even if it's not, just by parking one Corvette at any key city that you need to defend, you can basically, for the first 4 days, use these units that are sitting in that city for anything else. You can leave the city completely empty if you have a Corvette here, as long as they're not in danger of getting invaded by land somewhere else. Like let's say if you're in the Philippines, let's move over to the Philippines and hope I don't lag so much. Okay, so we look at like something like this city. As long as there's a Corvette here, they can't attack this city. That's the only way to get onto this city this early into the game. Like there's no way they can move an air base from all the way over here, like a helicopter infantry, what do you call it, airborne infantry can't move that far. So the only way to get there is by transport ship. So you can leave this one completely empty as long as there's a Corvette here. And so this part of your army can go do something else. It frees up your army by being the ultimate defense. Corvettes are really good at the start of the game. And the reason why I say day 4, like, yeah, you can research destroyers and frigates, pardon me. Like, you can research frigates and destroyers at day 2. But again, they take a day to research. So by the time you're done researching, it'll be day 3. And by the time you mobilize them, it'll be another day 4. And again, if you're doing that and you have to build naval base level 3, that's a whole ton of resources. That's so many resources. Almost nobody is going to have a destroyer actually on day 4. We're looking more like day 8, right? So for the first 4 to 8 days, your Corvette is providing the ultimate defense, and you can forego any other defense with any other units. You can focus all of your other units on attack. That's the insane power of the Corvette. All right. So as a recap, Motorized Infantry is a good, efficient, solid pick for anything that you really want to do on land operations. The thing you lose out on is diversity in your stack. So you might lose some units if you attack too aggressively with Motorized Infantry, but otherwise it's a very good unit, very efficient, and great for defense. National Guard is a unit that is great for mobilizing incredibly quickly. You can have 10 National Guard by the end of the day if you really wanted to. The downside is it's not a very good combat unit. It's not very efficient in terms of turning your resources into combat power. But again, if all you need is something sitting there, kind of guarding it, letting it so that the opponent can't claim the land so easily, and if you need a unit that is just you're just claiming land that's empty, National Guard is really good. Combat Recon Vehicle, most people think it's a recon vehicle and not much else, but really it's at the very start of the game, it's a very good aggressive move. Highly effective against other people's starting units, and you already know what they have. It doesn't change, so you know you're going to be effective when you build day one combat recon vehicles. Mobile anti-air vehicle is a good unit for I don't even know if counter defense is a proper term, but if you need to protect your army while they move across your opponent's provinces, they can see your stack. They can see the composition of your army, and they know that mobile anti-air vehicle is there. It'll either deter or defend against any of your opponent's attacks, either by nature of its high health or by its anti-air capabilities. Air Superiority Fighter is... Mobile anti-air, one of the downsides, it's expensive. Air Superiority Fighter is a great unit for whittling down your opponent's army. It reduces their options by taking out their Air Superiority Fighter, forcing them to build mobile anti-air vehicle, again, which is expensive. And you slowly whittle down their army, forcing them to make moves that they don't want to make, and preserving the forces of your own army. It's it's good in that case. The downside of the Air Superiority Fighter is that it does fall off. It loses to a lot of units that other people will make later into the game. People will build mobile anti-air. People will build mobile SAM launcher, especially mobile SAM launcher. They will build it, and so Air Superiority Fighters are not going to be able to handle that threat on their own. You're going to want to use your aircraft to maybe attack Navy units. They can't do that. So they're very limited in what they do. And finally, Corvette. Corvette is the ultimate defense. It doesn't beat anything in terms of like naval capabilities except aircraft carrier, but that's not what we're talking about. But it does beat transport ships. Corvettes are better than transport ships. And so in that regard, they protect you for the first 4 to 8 days. And the downside being that they fall off later in the game because, again, I mean, it is true that they're kind of weak in terms of naval warfare. But early on, they're a great defense. All right. Again, if you've tried infantry officer as a day one unit, let me know how that's gone. I'm curious to understand how that works. But hopefully, in terms of the other 6 starting units, you finally understand how to use them. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or comments about this video. Maybe this video was too long for the type of content that you got, but I hopefully that you learned something that you might have never learned just by watching a basic video that goes over basic information that you could have learned on your own. This is from hard-earned play experience, and so hopefully this is valuable to you. If you liked it, leave a like, and thanks. Welcome to my channel. And let's see. They still haven't attacked me. This is really concerning because they're just sitting at my base. I know they have units. They have air. They have land. They have sea. I'm about to go to work, and so I was really hoping I would be able to formulate a defense, but it seems like I might get unlucky. I'm going to be at work, and I will not be able to respond as quickly, even if I'm using my mobile phone. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. This was a very fun game. I'm still the top player in terms of city count, but that's probably going to change real soon.